Thank you, Mr Temporary Speaker, and it's with great pleasure that I rise to speak to the petition before the House today for the reintroduction of passenger train services on the Great Northern Railway line between Armidale and Jennings and Wallangara. You almost pronounce it correctly, Mr Temporary Speaker. It isn't in my electorate anymore, it's now in the seat of Lismore, but I still think it warrants pronouncing the wonderful community correctly, so I'll just do that for the record. I also note the presence in the chamber today, the Minister for Regional Transport and Roads, and at the outset I want to, before I come to the petition itself and the people behind the petition, I want to thank the Minister not just for being in the chamber for this debate, but also the time that she has made available to discuss this matter and others, not just with me, but also with the representatives of Trains North. And also, thank you very much for the funding today for the upgrade of the Markham Street rail level crossing. The boom gates will be of enormous relief to the many users of that road and no doubt avert what could have been, I fear, in the future, a very tragic accident. So thank you. I want to welcome to the gallery the supporters of the petition and many others, given the distance between this Parliament and the Northern Tablelands, who are watching at home, and to acknowledge particularly President Matthew Tierney, among others, for being the driving force bringing this petition today and the work that they have done over many years to amass 10,740 signatures from the residents of New South Wales, over 7,000 of which are from the Northern Tablelands electorate. And I want to also acknowledge the Trains North executive of Matthew Tierney, the President, Vice President Siri Gamage, Secretaries Karen von Stockhurch and Billy Wood, Treasurer Alan McKenzie, and members Margaret O'Connor, Denny McKenzie and Carolyn Chapman for the work they've done, and also acknowledge their predecessor groups, including Save the Great Northern Rail Group led by Gyra's Rob Lenihan and others as well. There's been a lot of people that have worked over many years to bring this petition to this Parliament today. This petition echoes the efforts of other groups before them over the last 3 and a bit decades to reinstate the line. The line has been inactive since the early 1990s. In fact, the information I have is that all train services terminated on that line in 1990, which, for the trivia buffs out there, I was in kindergarten in 1990. That's how long ago since we've seen a train run north of Armidale on that line. The line's never been closed. It requires an Act of Parliament to do that. It's open, but it's been disused, not maintained by state governments of all political colours since then because it's had no use. The Great Northern Rail line was actually looked at by the federal government and the ARTC when considering the inland rail route, but for a variety of reasons they chose to go further west and for the alignment of the rail line there. In recent years there has been a move once again to reuse this line and put rail passenger services on that line. And I want to commend the group again for the work that they've done, putting together the argument, the case, and mobilising community opinion. There's been a lot of debate about what the true cost would be to reinstate the line. Back in 2016, Transport for New South Wales estimated that it was around $1.3 to $1.4 billion. There's been other costs bandied around lately around $2 billion. Whatever the cost is, there is no doubt that it is a significant amount of public money that will be required to reinstate the line to a condition, to take passenger services or to take freight. And one of the challenges, no matter who's in government, will be opening a line. Typically would need to have freight underpinning the viability of that line to see passenger services reinstated. I know that the councils have been involved. Glen Innes and Armidale have very strong views about passenger services. Tenterfield Shire Council is supportive of bringing those services back. And I note that the Minister, in her correspondence, has not ruled out the reuse of the line, suggesting that there needs to be a business case provided, and I'm sure the Minister will elucidate upon that today, and I look forward to that and welcome that. Today is not the end of this debate. I view it as just the beginning. It's important that we keep talking, we keep discussing, and make sure that the line remains in public hands and remains available in the future for possible rail services. I commend the petition to the House.
The question is that the House take note of the petition. I now call the Minister for Regional Transport and Roads in response.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I am very pleased to speak on this debate. I acknowledge our guests in the chamber and particularly Matthew and Alan, who I thought yesterday, and I know we had Colin Schroeder there as well from Eco Transport. You have done an amazing job in getting so many signatures on this petition, and as the local member has said, so many from the actual area itself. That is no mean feat in that area of the world. Having come from there before I moved to Maitland in 2000, I'm well acquainted with the history of that rail line. In fact, when my parents-in-law and my family had the motel up at Wallangara, it was their work with CountryLink at the then time under the former Labor government that got that rail line reopened to Armidale in order to, because when we first started doing passenger movements, we were driving down to Tamworth to bring people up the Moonbee Ranges to open up tourism in that area, and that also opened up for Welcome Road. And as I said, and I have to acknowledge a great meeting we've had, but one of a number of meetings with people from this area, and I have met with Siri and others from the Northern Rail Defenders, Trains North obviously, and Deb O'Brien in Armidale, and of course local member Adam Marshall. And I do thank you for your advocacy for your community. This is a really fraught situation, I think, from a lot of history of people, not yourself, but other politicians perhaps, putting the cart before the horse in what are we going to do next. For me and for the Labor government, transport is a social determinant of education, of health, of opportunity and jobs. Wherever we see an opportunity to improve that, we should do it, but we need to do it in a much more strategic and coordinated way than has been done previously. And I don't throw blame at anyone, I just say we've got to look at how do we better connect resources with markets, people with hospitals and schools, and people with jobs across our state. That's why we have introduced a program of strategic regional integrated transport plans. That's an opportunity to look at all of the existing infrastructure, all of the existing public transport, all of the existing road networks that are in locations across our state, to marry those with the planning areas that the Minister for Planning is here in the chamber, so that when they are planning the schools and the precincts and the health precincts of the state in our regions, there's a transport plan that maps the same area. They're not talking about putting things over here, but our transport plan is over there in a different direction. So that is part of that. The other issue of it is, of course, a lot of the work that's been done on this is of some age, and it is probably worthwhile having a look at some point in the future. How do we progress that to look at, those issues of resilience for communities, of having strong transport networks? And as a government, we are committed to doing that. We know that, for instance, in situations like the global financial crisis, those communities who had access to heavy rail did better than those who didn't. But then there are other options like bus, rapid transit, etc., which can fill those gaps. But what we want to do, Mr Speaker, is make sure that when we come to these debates on public policy, we come from a position of evidence, of business cases, and as the local member alluded to, that is something that I hold very dear, because we want to have a really robust look at how our taxpayer dollars, not our government's dollars, not the former government's dollars, but people who working men and women across New South Wales, and not just in the cities, that third of the population in the regions, how their funds can be spent to make sure that their lives are easier to deal with. And so that is why we are keeping an open mind on all and any options, but what we're saying is we want to look at them in the fullness of the whole region, have a strategic look. One of the things that I've seen as I've come into this portfolio is there's a tendency to cut transport up, that freight's over here, passengers over there, roads over there, rails over here. Nothing is integrated in a way that has the best use. And you'll have a situation where somebody upgrades an airport, somebody sticks in some bus services, but they don't really go anywhere and don't really connect people with the places they want to go. So I really want to thank the people who have put this petition to us. I thank you for coming all the way from the New England. Having lived there, I know how hard and far that is. And I thank you for your contribution to our state. Thank you.
The question is that the House take note of the petition. I now call the member for Northern Tablelands in reply.
Thank you, Mr Temporary Speaker. I thank and acknowledge the Minister's contribution to the debate and welcome her comments about the government having a look at an integrated transport approach in our region, across regional New South Wales, but particularly in the New England, because one thing is for certain, that regardless of the fate of the Great Northern Line, the communities in our part of the world are ageing, and simply offering a coach service exclusively will not suit people with severe mobility issues or disabilities. It's just very, very hard to access a coach, and some of the timetables don't really suit people that need to access medical appointments for work or for study. So I welcome that, and I say to the Minister that you will find no stronger advocate than me and participant in that process, because we need to look at integrating and we need to look at links not just to Sydney, but links through to Queensland, where the northern part of my region gravitate to for business and medical services, and also increasingly with the lack of doctors and specialists to the coast, to centres like Port Macquarie and Coffs Harbour, and particularly looking at perhaps some direct public transport links between Armidale and Coffs Harbour on a daily basis, the 2-hour trip route. Regardless, there are still some very valid arguments that are put forward by the petitioners for the return of train services, and I acknowledge that the Minister is not in a position to say, yep, we're going to spend over $1 billion or whatever it is reinstating this tomorrow. It has to be part of a broader piece of work, and I welcome what the Minister had to say in progressing that. Again, I want to thank Matthew and his team on the amazing work they've done putting this together. And the tidal wave of community support that's behind this, and the work that will continue to happen. I thank the House and the Minister.
The question is that the House take note of the petition to reintroduce passenger trains north of Armidale. I shall now put the question. All of that opinion, please say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.